All right, welcome back to Reflections, everyone, where we talk about all things Church of Christ with the Elijah Message. It is wonderful to be back with you, spending this time together. So we've been talking about the coming forth of Scriptures. And this is the story of our faith. And a part of this story is waiting on the voice of God in His own due time. The Israelites waited on the words of the prophets. And the words of the prophets came, and they prophesied of the coming of the Messiah. And they waited on the coming of the Messiah. The Messiah comes, and people write down their experiences. And it's distributed, and people wait to read what's on the pages in the Gospels. And Paul is establishing churches, and he's writing occasion letters to these churches, and they're being passed around and copied. And so people are waiting for the words of Paul. And Jesus says that he has other sheep. And those other sheep write the words that Jesus spoke to him. And so we wait for the Nephite records to come forth. And then as Elijah Message saints, we wait on the word of the Lord. We wait on John the Baptist bringing the words of heaven to our church. And in the Church of Christ with the Elijah Message, a third way of the Lord, and the Church of Christ with the Elijah Message established anew in 1929, there have been 120 messages. 120 times that the Lord has brought us scriptures as we waited for them to come forth. And in the Church of Christ with the Elijah Message Incorporated, there have been 158 messages to date. And in that church, there's the waiting for the word of the Lord, the waiting for the John the Baptist to come forth. And as we wait on the words of heaven, we are to give them to you. So let's take a look at the word of the Lord brought to mankind by an angel. Let's begin in message 21. Message 21, verse 8. Follow not the traditions of men, for the Lord will direct in His own way. Seek not to please man, but keep the commandments of God. The Lord will direct further that the church will be established in its fullness. But prepare ye a people. As I told you, many will help in this work. God will establish this church in its fullness and give all the messages from heaven. And we are to be prepared to be a people to represent Christ in His church. And that many will come to help in this way. Let's go to message 98. In verse 7. There are many that have long represented Christ. I mean, there's so many churches to choose from. You know, we have these ancient patriarchal churches like the Roman Catholic Church, the Eastern Orthodox Church, the Assyrian Church of the East, the Oriental Orthodox churches. And we have Reformation churches, Lutheran and Anglican, and then even further, New Methodist and Baptist and Pentecostal. And there are many wonderful people doing many wonderful things, representing Christ as best they can in their tradition. Continuing, the messenger says, as he given words from heaven, those that will hear his voice in very deed will come into the church of Christ, and it be established among them with all its gifts and blessings, and represent Christ and his church. And there will come a time when Jesus returns that everyone who has taken upon themselves the name of Christ will have the record of the Nephites and the word of the Lord brought to mankind by an angel. And they will know that this is the fullness of the gospel. Let's continue to message 108. In the introduction here, I sat and read the message through feeling greatly blessed because of it for the church work, and also weakened very much. Having spent last week in the hospital of illness, I decided not to call anyone this early in the morning for help on the message at this moment, but went back to bed. However, I felt to write this introduction before lying down. It was 5:39 a.m. I worry about a just to the multitude when so few listen to this angel's message, the word of the Lord brought to mankind by an angel. That's a fascinating thing to write. William Draves is pondering and wondering. So few people accept the word of the Lord. Comparatively to other Christian churches, our church is, a fraction of the size. We're in the thousands. There's not many of us. But yet the work continues. And he's talking about this adjust to the multitude. And that's a reference to an earlier message. That's message 102. Verse 14. Let the work continue everywhere in the foreign fields, where it can be established. So, Brother Draves is reflecting on this. Let the work continue, even though it's small, even though people aren't accepting it, the work continues on. Rejoice and be glad, for it is the Lord's will. It will yet grow and multiply greatly. And it has in certain parts of the world, particularly in Africa. Adjust to the multitudes. I think that's a really interesting phrase. And I'm not sure. But I feel like it means something that you meet people where they are. You meet people in their circumstances. You meet people in their cultures. You meet people in their language. You meet people in their customs. And you don't have to take it over. You just add on to it. You add on the gospel. When you look at the beautiful languages of the world and the beautiful customs and the traditions, and you adjust to them, even though they may be foreign and different, you may not understand them. But you present the gospel to them. You present the record of the Nephites and the word of the Lord. And you try to understand them and meet them where they are. It's an interesting idea. Let's go to the record of the Nephites. Just one more thought. In 3 Nephi, chapter 15, verses 5 and 6, this is Jesus speaking. Well, let's do verse 4. Behold, I say unto you that the law is fulfilled that was given unto Moses. Behold, I am he that gave the law. Jesus is the God of Israel. He's the one that gave the Israelites the law. And I am he which covenanted with my people Israel. Therefore the law in me is fulfilled. For I have come to fulfill the law. Therefore it hath an end. Behold, I do not destroy the prophets. For as many as have not been fulfilled in me, verily I say unto you, shall all be fulfilled. So a lot of times when we hear this, when we think about when Jesus fulfills the law, he fulfills the legalism of the law. He fulfills the ordinances of the law, the sacrifice, the dietary laws that separated the Israelites from other people. You know, the way that they dressed, that separated them from other people. But yet, we keep sacred the books of Moses. We didn't get rid of them. And we still use them and preach from them and get inspiration from them. No. We didn't just, as Christians, accept the New Testament and reject the Old Testament. You know, we've discovered that there is a great value in the Old Testament. And part of that great value is that there's so much Old Testament in the New Testament. Because the people that were writing these books were either Jewish themselves or converts to Judaism. And we have this really fascinating passage too, where Jesus says in verse 6, I do not destroy the prophets. And we still have the prophets. We didn't get rid of them in our Bibles. For as many as have not been fulfilled in me, verily I say unto you, shall all be fulfilled. One of the claims that Jewish people make that Jesus is not the Messiah is that there's these prophecies that he didn't fulfill. And Jesus right here is admitting this, that yes, there are prophecies that I have not yet fulfilled. I've fulfilled many of them, but not all of them. But in the end I shall. So we know as Christians that there are prophecies in the Old Testament about the Messiah that have not come forth yet. But Jesus here in the record of the Nephites is giving us the assurance that these prophecies will be fulfilled in the time and the day of the Lord. My brothers and sisters, it's been nice speaking with you, thinking about these things, reflecting upon them. And until next time, I invite you into the Elijah Message House.